Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. He has written for the Houston Chronicle, MLB.com, and 24/7 Sports. Now he finds himself covering sports for USA Today. It is Jaylon Thompson. Jaylon, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Yao. I'm so excited to be here and speak with your audience, and I'm excited.
All right, well, let's start with this. Flashing back to the 2012-2013 season, a league record 14 of the NBA's 30 head coaches were African American, but at the start of the 2020-21 season, that number turned to 7. So, besides poor performance, what else do you think may have played a role in the decrease of African American coaches during that time period?
Well, I think the big thing about that decrease, it might have been actually just the way the game was changing at the time. You know, the game went from being really heavily with big men in the front court and working off of pick and rolls and getting the ball to the basket. So you kind of needed coaches that had knew how to coach that system to be able to run those offenses. But now the game has vastly changed. It's all about the 3-point shot now. You see teams getting players in the draft that want to shoot the three and make it for analytical purposes. So I believe that the reason for that decrease was because you wanted some coaches that knew that system, but now, as you see, it's coming back up.
Yeah, when you look at a league such as the NBA that is over 75% black, how much should that create the notion that a majority of the head coaching opportunities have to go to black candidates as well?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, when you look at just like you said, 75% of the league is black players, and I think you have to have someone that can understands the mindset and how to really perform as a black athlete. And one example I like to look at is Monty Williams. This season in the NBA Finals, there's a video I think on Twitter or whatnot of him talking to DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton was kind of solemn a little bit. He was kind of disappointed in his play, and Monty Williams came over there and he kind of encouraged him and picked him up and saying, "We need you. You are someone that we count on, we depend on. Just keep playing your game. You are someone that can go out there and dominate, and we need that." And they picked them up. So I think just having that encouragement where you can go to someone and really be like that mentor or that big brother that is needed. I think that's big for this league, and having guys that can do that in a head coaching role only opens up more opportunities for minorities and things of that nature.
An opportunity certainly was seized because by the time the 2020-2021 NBA season ended, there were 8 head coach openings and 7 were filled by African Americans. In your opinion, how much of this was okay? 7 coaches were the best candidates versus, all right, we are only hiring these African American coaches because the front offices were feeling the pressure from social media and from the outside world.
I don't know so much if it's the front offices feeling the pressure to really hire a black coach or anything like that. I feel like that they just really had an opportunity to look more at African American coaches. And by looking at those African American coaches, they were like, "Hey, we got some really good candidates here." I mean, if you look at the people that got hired, you got Hall of Famers and Jason Kidd that has coached in the league before. You have someone like Chauncey Billups, who is a great player and should be on the way to possibly a Hall of Fame career himself. He's out in Portland. But then you also have lead assistants like Jamal Mosley in Orlando, or Wes Unseld Jr. that's going into the Wizards in Washington, or Willie Green that's in New Orleans. Those guys have been on staffs for a long time. They've been around championship teams for a long time, around coaches for a long period of time. And to understand that they know what they're doing and how they're architects of a lot of those teams, I think that really has appealed to these general managers and these front offices to give them a chance. And I think that's the biggest thing with black coaches. You just want that chance because they know how to coach. Wes Unseld Jr. has been in the league since 2005 as an assistant coach. His dad was Wes Unseld, who's a Hall of Famer. He knows how to coach basketball. He just needed that chance. And I think with the social landscape and things of that nature from 2020 being a part of it, I believe that opened the door for them to say, "Hey, we will look at more African American candidates and we will actually maybe hire some because of their credentials." And I think that's what happened.
I appreciate you bringing up qualifications because that leads me to my next question. When you look at Steve Nash last year being hired by the Brooklyn Nets, he acknowledged that he benefited from white privilege and that he did, quote unquote, skip the line. Stephen A. Smith was, of course, very vocal about this as well. But I want to ask, is it white privilege or is it more of the fact that Nash had a connection with the general manager, Sean Marks, who was his former teammate?
You know what? It might be a little bit of both. But it's Steve Nash. Steve Nash is a former MVP in the league. Steve Nash is a Hall of Famer. Steve Nash knows how to play the game of basketball. So for him to get that job, I think it might be a little bit of both. But he definitely has the on-court credentials to get the job done. I mean, we saw the same thing happen with Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr didn't have head coaching experience where he got hired with the Golden State Warriors, but it turned out pretty well. So in Steve Nash's case, I think it really wasn't too much about a lot of white privilege. I mean, I'm sure it played a big role in it, but Steve Nash can play the game of basketball and he knows the game of basketball. So I think it wasn't that bad, in my opinion.
And I mentioned that because there are multiple new head coaches that are like Nash, had a connection of some sort with the team. The GM of the Nets, as I mentioned, was Nash's teammate. And you mentioned Wes Unseld Jr., who was hired by Washington. His father played for the franchise, and that may have played a role. So are people mistaking white privilege in some argument and in some arguments racism for just having an in with the team when it comes to head coaching hires?
I believe so. I definitely believe so. Because when you think of white privilege, you're thinking of a person that, like you said, is getting opportunity over a well-deserved minority candidate or things of that nature. Like in the case of Steve Nash, uh, in my opinion, I felt like it was a good move because, like I said, it's always going to be about who you know. But Steve Nash was a Hall of Famer, so he had the credentials. So I wasn't really like put back like, oh, I can't believe he got the job over someone else. But like there have been cases in the league where you might like, well, why would you choose that person over another one? And why are you going to take a chance on a project type of assistant that maybe doesn't work out? I look at Indiana, for example. Indiana, they replaced Nate McMillan with assistant coach this past season, and it didn't work out. And now they've turned to Rick Carlisle to help create that stability. So, I mean, it really just depends on the situation and the type of coaches you are looking at for the role.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question as well. Rick Carlisle, the one team that didn't hire an African American head coach to its vacancy is the Indiana Pacers, who hired Carlisle. So, knowing that Carlisle was hired only a week after departing from the Mavericks, how much do you find it wrong that Indiana decided not to do an extensive coaching search that may have led to an African American candidate being hired?
Yeah, in Indiana's case, I think it really was about the fit. And Rick Carlisle, he has coached there before in Indiana. He knows the team, he knows the city, and Rick Carlisle is a great coach as well. So I don't take that away from them not looking at a minority candidate or not seriously looking at one just for they wanted Rick Carlisle, because Rick Carlisle has won an NBA title before, so he knows kind of what he's doing. So I think in that case, Indiana kind of knew who they wanted to get, and I think they just went after them. But like in the other case that we mentioned earlier in this interview, I think it really is a great sign that they vetted these candidates and they got some people that are first time head coaches and can really get that experience on the court. That the key is, will the teams allow them time to rebuild and really put their system into play? Because I believe having at least 3 to 4 years is necessary for any first year head coach to really create the results that he wants and the team that he wants to put on the field. I mean, on the court. But it really just depends on that symbiotic relationship between the front office and the players and the personnel and the coaches. It all has to come together. If one does not work, then it's going to be some poor results that may happen.
3 to 4 years is a long time, and some front offices have proven in the past that they are not going to tolerate, the lack of success with not within the first years of the coaching hire. So Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Portland, and Washington all made the playoffs, but looking at Orlando, New Orleans, those teams didn't make the postseason.
Mhm.
There's certainly an argument to be made that none of these jobs are bad ones per se, but on the flip side, are any of these new hires being set up to fail, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I honestly, I do not think so, because when you look at the coaching cycle and who got hired, I'll give you an example. I think Jamal Mosley, I think that's how you pronounce his name, in Orlando. He was the defensive architect for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, he helped Dorian Finney-Smith, guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., even Steph Curry before he went on to the 76ers, really grow and develop their game. And now he's going to Orlando, where it's a full rebuild, but his acumen as a defensive coach can really unlock someone like Jonathan Isaac, who is a has two-way potential. He missed last season with an injury, but he's coming back. I think he can help someone like Cole Anthony really grow in his second year. So these guys that are coming in as coaches, they were assistants for a long time. Even Chauncey Billups in Portland was an assistant for a while. So I don't believe they're really set for failure. I think that they're in a good position because they've been around the block. They know how to coach and how to do things of that nature. So I look forward to seeing, what they do. These guys have a lot of NBA experience. So I'm excited for it. Even in Boston with Ime Udoka, he can learn under Coach Popovich. And now he played overseas internationally before he became a coach. I just think that those are key factors. Like if you've been on the hardwood and you know what you're doing and you can score and you can defend, you can make the winning plays, I think that translates over to being a great coach.
But when you look at the individual circumstances for each team, Portland, there's been trade rumors with Damian Lillard. Lillard is expecting to compete for a championship next year. And I know you mentioned 3 to 4 years is the standard time a new coach should have. But let's say Portland doesn't even make it out the first round again next year. Should that warrant some conversation that maybe Chauncey Billups isn't the person for the job?
Ooh, that's a good question. And if that happens, that's going to be a conversation that Portland will have to really reevaluate, because we heard the stories, we heard the rumors. Damian Lillard was asked who do you want as a head coach, and he said he wanted either Jason Kidd or Chauncey Billups. They got Chauncey Billups. So like you said, this is definitely for Damian Lillard and getting this Portland team to really shake it up and try to get over the hump in the NBA playoffs. But like you said, if that doesn't work out and they get a first round exit, who knows if Damian Lillard is going to even be in Portland in the next couple of years. And then in that case, do you allow Chauncey Billups to continue to, work with in a rebuild? Will he want to even stay in a rebuild? I mean, those are questions that have to be answered with the upcoming season. But for right now, I think it's really win now or it's a bust of a campaign for Portland, because they've been there multiple times. I remember, I think it was 2019, 2018. They were in the Western Conference Finals, and then they get bounced in the first round. They have talent. They just have to put it all together.
And then Boston now, even they're expecting to contend in the Eastern Conference, and Dallas as well. They're not waiting for Luka to develop. He's already a star in some cases. So I know you said 3 to 4 years is the standard time once again, but should there be a level of urgency in terms of you have all the pieces you need or about all the pieces you need to contend? In the first 2 years, we're expecting you to do something big with the team. Should that be expected of these first-year coaches?
I think it depends on the roster and who do you have. Like, for example, we mentioned Chauncey Billups in Portland. We mentioned Jason Kidd in Dallas. Those were playoff teams. So they are expected to win. And I think those hires were put in place to really get the team over the hump and into the playoffs and maybe even the NBA finals. But like, if you look at Washington, if you look at New Orleans, if you look at Orlando, those are pretty much young teams that need that guiding hand, and it might take a couple of years. So I think their timelines maybe will lend to 3 to 4 years. But like in those teams that are like playoff position, they definitely need a win now. I think that's why Jason Kidd was brought in with the Dallas Mavericks. One, because he played in Dallas and he knows how to win a championship there, and also Luka Doncic and him have similar characteristics. And I think that was a big thing. They wanted someone that could see what Luka sees on the floor and really help just explain that with the rest of the team. So I think in that situation with Dallas and Portland, it's win now. And if they don't win now, there might be questions about was it the right move or what's next with both of those franchises.
Yeah, I know for me, I have a lot of questions as to whether a new head coach was the way to go. Obviously, in Dallas, you couldn't control it because Rick Carlisle felt like his time there was over. But Portland, they felt like the fix was a new head coach. We'll see how that progresses in the upcoming season. But I know you also cover the NFL. So before I let you go,
Mhm.
which league do you see having the bigger problem when it comes to representation in positions of power?
Oh, definitely the NFL, in my opinion. I think the NFL has to figure out a way where we can get more minority head coaches, black head coaches, Latino head coaches, Hispanic head coaches in those positions. Because you look at the league, you can name on pretty much one hand the NFL head coaches that are black or are minority. I mean, and that has to change. There are a lot of guys that are assistant head coaches that don't get a chance to even have a head coaching position. One name that comes to mind for me is Byron Leftwich with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We all know they just won a Super Bowl, and he was the architect behind that offense that really helped guide them over the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you look at the Chiefs, Eric Bieniemy, I mean, he can't even get a chance to have a head coaching job. And it has to be taking a toll on these guys to go on interview after interview after interview, and they don't get picked or they don't get selected. So I believe the NFL definitely has to do away with this idea of, well, we're going to interview you, but we're not going to hire you as a head coach. And the Rooney Rule was put in place so they even could interview a black or minority candidate. And I think the NFL's next step has to be addressing that, because your league is predominantly African American as well. And if you don't have guys that are representative at the top, then how does that look for your players and your staff as you continue to, evolve in the future? Because eyes are watching. And I think it's time that we get more African American voices in that league.
Finally, what do you think the NBA, or excuse me, what do you think the NFL could learn from what the NBA did in the last few weeks in regards to coaching hires?
Give him a chance. I think you have to give him a chance. I look at Mike Tomlin, for example. Mike Tomlin was an assistant for a long time, and then he comes over to Pittsburgh, and he's replacing Bill Cowher. And Bill Cowher, Hall of Fame coach, helped really win Super Bowls with Jerome Bettis and the crew. And you're putting Mike Tomlin into this role, and he has thrived in it. I mean, I believe he hasn't had a losing season yet in Pittsburgh. He's been winning, and he's been keeping that team really relevant. So that's one example. Guys like Brian Flores in Miami with Chris Greer as his general manager. That's an African American general manager and an African American coach. They have been on the rise in the last couple of years, and I think they might take a big step this year. So you see that these things can work. These things can happen. I think the biggest thing with the NFL is it's all about these old coaching trees. There's the Bill Walsh coaching tree. There's the Bill Belichick coaching tree. So these teams are going to go after these assistants that were, on under those coaches. And sometimes it's worked, but sometimes it hasn't. And I think we have to really reimagine that and look and see, well, we can go get a young up and coming coach that has probably played in the league, knows a lot about working as an assistant in different position groups, and give them a chance and see what they can do. I mean, all black men and black coaches are asking for, and minorities, are just a chance. And they get that chance, let's see what happens. So I think that's what the NFL has to do. Give the African American coaches a chance.
Jaylon Thompson, USA Today, former writer for the Houston Chronicle, MLB.com, and 24/7 Sports. Jaylon, thank you for the time. It was greatly appreciated.
Oh, thank you so much, Yaw. I love talking to you. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited for everything and that's happening and going to come to you in the future.
Thank you.